if you ever bought something, waited 2 weeks, and it came in not fitting what you originally wanted it to do, hit that subscribe button, like and share the video. Today we'll be reviewing the Lumens Factory E series upgrade heads. So Lumens Factory is a Hong Kong company that creates upgrade heads for a lot of different flashlights. They have their Surefire E series, their P series. They have all sorts of upgrade heads for, of course, different lights. These heads typically are high output and high performance. So one of the more interesting products they offer is the E series upgrade heads. These originally are intended for upgrades to the older generation executive flashlights, which are more or less the same footprint as a Surefire Scout. Now, of course, with the current generation of B series and Scouts, you might not need to upgrade them for their original intents and purposes. However, these lights are still very relevant, as they do offer a big performance boost for older generations of these lights while keeping their more or less stock look. One of the more peculiar things with their E series heads is that they are weapons rated, meaning that you can more or less put it on a Surefire Scout light and use it as a upgrade head if you have the older generations 600A, B, or C. These generally output about maximum 1,000 lumens, but they say it ranges about from 600 to 1,000 depending on how much voltage you put through it. They are coated with a HA3 black or natural anodization, and one very nice feature is that they feature a quick to remove little lens that, in case it shatters, probably by a BB shot in this application, you could easily just buy it separately and replace it. One thing that makes the head modular is that you could buy their bulbs separately, and as well as their head and their bezels, and mix and match it, much like a Lego, which pretty much is the reason why we called it a Lego light. From my personal experience, this outputs a very nice white light. I have the cool version. They also offer the warm white, neutral white, and the cool white right here. The cool white is not as cold as I expect compared to what you would see on a airsoft Scout light, namely the Element 600U. The Element 600U outputs about 500 lumens, and their light is significantly colder than this in terms of light temperature. Of course, that is 500 lumens, this is 1,000 lumens, it's outputting significantly more lights. So in terms of output, we can't compare that, but just for light color, there is some differences. Now, of course, when we talk about 1,000 lumen flashlights, we will have to compare it with other 1,000 lumen flashlights. One of those 1,000 lumen flashlights, I think everyone knows what it is, and pretty much everyone in the Real Steel community has either tried one or have one themselves. That is the Streamlight HLX. Now, comparing the Streamlight HLX and the Lumens Factory E series head is kind of interesting because their outputs, because they are very similar in terms of output and beam pattern. If not, this has a slightly better focus at range, but in the typical 10-meter airsoft range, you wouldn't see much of a difference. To compare them better, we'll be doing a list of tests as we go through the range, shooting, getting blinded by it, such. So this is the E1 series. The hot spot is about the size of that, but there's a lot more spill. This is the HLX, a bit more focused, blinds you a bit better, a lot less spill. Now in terms of air softening, I personally prefer one with a lot more spill than throw because at a typical range of 10-20 meters, you want to have more light to see more things than to focus it and see further. Because 20 meters, you don't need much.
Yeah. Okay, now I'm filming.
It's about 10 meters. This is a flinch test. My assistant here will be shining their respective lights onto my face. I will announce when I'm starting to flinch, and let's see how much the blinding power is. Okay, this is the E series. Okay, there it is. Right. Let's do the HLX. Ow. Right, there it is. Right, that concludes the flinch test. As we can see, I flinched significantly faster with the HLX. So the final verdict. If you're a owner of the 600A, B, C, or any Surefire that doesn't output 1000 lumens, you want to keep a more or less original look with the head, and you want one that could reliably output basically 1000 lumens. The Lumens Factory E series could be had for about $64 without discounting shipping. Of course, they're in Hong Kong. Shipping from Hong Kong to the US may be a bit more expensive, but if you are locally in Hong Kong, I would suggest you give them a try. They're very nice upgrade heads. Their customer service was absolutely phenomenal. I basically had a chat with them on their Facebook page, the Messenger. We had a bit of a talk between the differences between replicas and the real ones. Things to consider. This is threaded to the Surefire National Pipe thread tapered spec, meaning that it will not work on most replica Surefires, which are threaded to the metric spec. Of course, you could rethread them slightly smaller to accommodate these lights, but the connection reliability will be affected. Of course, as Lumens Factory themselves said it better, we do not recommend you to buy replica Surefire lights.